Look, I'm not claiming humans are primitive. That would be speciesist, and I do like to think I'm above that sort of prejudice. But you need to understand, when Ambassador Kira Voss first walked into the Galactic Concord's headquarters, nobody took her seriously. Not even me. And I'm supposed to be the rational one. My designation is Zorv Tanax, Chief Diplomatic Liaison for the 7th Quadrant Security Council. In my 63 cycles of service, I've navigated negotiations with 17 different species. Humans, though, they were different right from the beginning. "Please state your credentials for the record," I recall saying as she stepped into our immaculate conference hall aboard Starbase Nexus Prime. The chamber gleamed with holographic projections, streaming live updates from across the galaxy. 47 ambassadors from the most advanced civilizations in charted space regarded her with barely disguised contempt. Kira Voss, appointed ambassador from Earth, representing the United Terran Alliance, she answered, and that was the moment. The one later cited in thousands of diplomatic records as First Contact Blunder 472B. She spoke with what humans call an accent. Vowels drawn out in strange places, consonants cut short where they clearly shouldn't be. To our audio-sensitive species, it sounded as though she were intentionally butchering the universal common tongue. Ambassador Krell of the Vonter Hegemon tilted his cranial ridges. "Is your translation matrix defective, human, or do all Earth-dwellers distort speech so vividly?" A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Not the courteous variety, either. Kira Voss stood there, 5'7" of apparent irrelevance, dressed in a plain blue uniform. No ornate battle plate like the Draxians, no visible neuro-augmentation like the Mektari, not even the minimal genetic edits most starfaring species considered basic necessity. "My translator is functioning perfectly," she replied. She answered, the corners of her mouth twitching upward. "This is simply how we speak where I'm from. We call it a southern accent, one of many my world possesses." Ambassador Pellax of the Juxian Confederation gave a sharp snort through his respiratory slits. "Humans have multiple ways to incorrectly speak the same language? How delightfully inefficient." The chamber's laughter grew. Voss didn't so much as blink. I'll admit I joined in the mirth at the time. The notion that inefficiency could ever be a strength felt like the perfect proof of human backwardness. We had spent millennia refining our societies, perfecting our languages, even honing our very biology. Humans, barely 2 centuries into faster-than-light capability, treated their oddities as features, not flaws. How spectacularly mistaken we were. "Ambassador Voss, the Council has reviewed your species' petition for Concordat membership," I said, steering the gathering back to order. "While we acknowledge Earth's notable recent technological strides, we find your military capabilities insufficient for full member status." "How so?" she asked, hands clasped neatly behind her back. Grand Marshal Vitor of the Baraxian. Empire leaned forward, his ceremonial war plates clicking in emphasis. "Your species has never engaged in interstellar conflict. You possess no fleets worthy of the term, and your armaments are crude, outclassed even by our civilian defense arrays." "That's true," Voss agreed, showing no sign of offense. "We've devoted ourselves more to exploration than conquest. A luxury for those sheltered by greater powers," sniffed Trade Minister Locks, her golden scales rippling with thinly veiled disdain. "The galaxy is dangerous, Ambassador. Without demonstrable military might, how could your kind contribute meaningfully to our collective defense?" Voss smiled. Not the polished diplomatic curve I'd seen from 100 other envoys. This one was different. Almost entertained. "Minister Locks, with respect, there are many kinds of warfare. Some require no fleets at all." The chamber erupted, this time in unrestrained laughter. "Does she propose to fell the Hive Collective with crude projectile arms?" sneered hooded Chancellor Gaz. "Perhaps they'll hurl their quaint paper currency at enemy vessels," another voice quipped. I lifted a hand for silence, inwardly cringing at the breach of decorum. Ambassador Voss, while we value your distinctive viewpoint, the reality is this: your people have never encountered a truly advanced, hostile adversary. The Concordat cannot extend protection to those unable to uphold our mutual security. I understand, she replied, her unusual accent somehow sharpening with each word. But I do hope everyone here keeps an open mind. Humans have a talent for surprising people. Why all? Repeated Ambassador Quell, the universal translator stumbling over the contraction. Is this some coded diplomatic signal? Voss laughed. Just a colloquialism from home. In my region on Earth, it just means you all. Then why not simply say you all? Asked Representative Nix, genuinely puzzled. Why use many words when few do the trick? Voss answered, grinning as if sharing a private joke. I decided in that moment that humans were likely far too peculiar for full Concordat membership. Their ambassador couldn't even seem to treat our security concerns with proper gravity. I noted to recommend observer status only. That was 6 standard months ago. Today, as I dictate this account, Kira Voss commands the largest military operation in Concordat history, and none of us are laughing now. The Vex had never even been Concordat members. We'd never even encountered them before. One day our outer monitoring stations went dark. The next 3 colony worlds stopped responding to communications. By the 3rd day, we had confirmed reports of a previously unknown species with technology that somehow bypassed our most sophisticated defense systems. The Concordat Security Council convened an emergency session. All 47 member species were present, including Earth's Ambassador Voss still. Relegated to her observer seat in the far corner of the chamber, the situation is grave, announced Grand Marshal Vitor, displaying holographic images of destroyed outposts. The Rex vessels appear to use some form of phase-shifting technology that renders our standard shields useless. They have already destroyed 2 Baraxian battle cruisers. Murmurs of alarm spread through the chamber. The Baraxian fleet was considered among the most formidable in the galaxy. What about negotiation attempts? Asked Trade Minister Locks. All hailing frequencies have been met with silence, I reported. Mectaria attempted to establish telepathic contact, but their scions described the Vrex consciousness as impenetrable. Then we must mobilize the combined fleet, declared Chancellor Gazit, them with overwhelming force before they advance further. The council erupted into heated debate. Some advocate immediate military response, others urged caution. I happened to glance toward Ambassador Voss during this exchange. She wasn't participating in the debate. Instead, she was studying the tactical displays with unusual intensity, her brow furrowed in concentration on an impulse. I still can't explain. I activated her communication channel. Ambassador Voss, you seem troubled. Does Earth have experience with similar threats? The Vrex incursion. Begins chamber quieted as her voice with that distinctive accent filled the room. Not with the Vex specifically, no, but something about their attack pattern seems familiar. Grand Marshal Victor scoffed, familiar to a species that hasn't fought an interstellar war. Do enlighten us. Ambassador, I expected Voss to withdraw in the face of his sarcasm. Instead, she stood and approached the central display. May I? She asked, gesturing to the controls. Curious. In nodded permission, Voss manipulated the display, highlighting the progression of Rex attacks. Look at the pattern. They're not attacking population centers or military installations. First, they are targeting communication relays, sensor arrays, and transportation hubs, obviously said Trade Minister Locke standard. Invasion tactics. No, Voss replied, shaking her head. Standard invasion aims to neutralize military response or secure valuable resources. This is different. They are systematically isolating each target before attacking. It's not an invasion strategy. What would you call it? Then, asked Chancellor Gaz. Voss looked up here. Expression grim where I come from. We'd call it hunting. The word hung in the air, unexpectedly chilling. Explain, I prompted. These aren't the actions of conquerors. she continued. They are the actions of predators. They are treating your colonies like prey, separate, isolate, then consume. Ambassador, Krell laughed nervously. Absurd, no. Advanced species would evolve from pure predators who said anything. About pure Voss countered humans. Evolved from omnivores with strong predatory instincts. We still carry those instincts, and we recognize them in others. She manipulated the display again, this time, overlaying a new pattern. If I'm right, their next targets will be here, here, and here. And here not because they are strategically valuable, but because they are vulnerable, isolated easy pickings. Grand Marshal Victor studied the projection with narrowed eyes. An interesting theory. Ambassador, but how does this help us defeat them, boss? Smiled that unsettling smile again. Well, Marshal, if they are hunting us, then we need to stop acting like prey, meaning pressed Chancellor Gaz. Ray run spray hides, prey reacts. She said, her accent somehow making the words sound more ominous. Predators. Anticipate they set traps, they turn the hunt against the hunter. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. You are suggesting we use your colonies as bait? Trade Minister Locks finally asked. Agas asked. Not at all, Boss replied. I'm suggesting we make them think they are still the predator when in fact they have become the prey. I found myself leaning forward unexpectedly. Intrigued, and how would you propose we do that, Ambassador? First, we need tea. If you have specific tactical suggestions, present them formally. Boss nodded. I have already prepared some initial thoughts. She transferred a data packet to the central system, but I will need access to your full military intelligence to develop a comprehensive strategy. Chancellor Gaz barked a laugh. You expect us to grant a non-member species access to our most sensitive security information? Voss presents her strategy based on a theory about hunting patterns. Not at all. Boss replied calmly. I expect you to make decisions based on what's best for your people. If that means dismissing my help, so be it. She turned to leave, but I found myself calling after her. Ambassador. Wait, I looked around at my fellow council members. The Vex have already destroyed our most advanced defensive systems. Perhaps we should consider unconventional approaches. Trade Minister Locks hissed in disapproval. Music. You can't seriously be considering this. What I'm considering, I replied, is that in 6 days, we have lost more territory than in the previous 100 years. Combined, our conventional strategies are failing. What do we have to lose by listening? Grand Marshal Victor studied Voss for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Limited access under supervision. If her insights prove valuable, we can reconsider. Thank you, Marshal Voss said with a small bow. I promise you won't regret it. As she left the chamber, Ambassador Krell leaned toward me. This is madness. Zorv, trusting our security to a human, they still use combustion engines on parts of their planet. I watched Voss's retreating form, remembering her words about predators and prey. Perhaps, I replied quietly. That's exactly why we should listen to her. I had no idea then just how right I was or how terrifying humans could be when they spoke the language of war. But I was about to find out 3 days after we granted Ambassador Voss access to our military intelligence. She presented her findings to the Security Council. The chamber was tense-filled with high-ranking military officials alongside the usual diplomatic corps. No one was laughing at her accent. Now the Vrex communication system operates on quantum entanglement principles. Voss explained, manipulating a 3-dimensional projection in the center of the room. This is why we can't intercept their transmissions. Each ship maintains constant connection with the others without detectable signals. How could you possibly know this? Demanded Admiral Pix of the Makari Defense Force, we have been unable to capture any of their technology for analysis. Voss highlighted a section of data scrolling beside the projection by analyzing the electromagnetic footprint of their ships during coordinated maneuvers. The precision of their formations, even when separated by vast distances, suggests instantaneous communication. Quantum entanglement is the most likely explanation. Grand Marshal Victor leaned forward, his war plates clicking softly. Assuming you are correct, how does this help us? It gives us their weakness, Voss replied, her voice steady. Quantum entanglement requires incredible precision. The entangled particles must remain in perfect alignment. Any significant disruption breaks the connection. She tapped a control, and the projection shifted to show a new device. This is a modified graviton pulse generator. Earth developed the prototype for mining. The trap is set at Caldor Prime operations in dense asteroid fields, with some adjustments. It can create localized gravitational distortions capable of breaking quantum alignment trade. Minister Locke's scales rippled with skepticism. You expect us to believe that human mining equipment can defeat technology that has overwhelmed our most advanced military systems. Sometimes a rock is more effective. Thana Laser Voss replied with that unsettling smile, especially when your opponent doesn't see it coming. I studied her proposed tactics with growing interest. You are suggesting we use these devices to isolate Rex vessels from their fleet consciousness? Exactly. She nodded. Cut off from Central Command. They will be vulnerable to conventional attacks, but that's just the first phase. The holographic display shifted again, now showing a familiar star system, Caldor Prime, one of our most heavily populated colonies. You want to defend Caldor? Asked Chancellor Gaz. Our intelligence suggests it's not even on their current attack vector. That's why it's perfect. Voss said, we are not going to defend it, we are going to make it look defenseless. A murmur ran through the assembly. Elaborate, I prompted. Increasingly intrigued by her thinking, we stage a public evacuation. Make it messy, disorganized, leave behind evidence of panic. Then we pull back all visible defense forces. Her fingers traced patterns through the projection. Meanwhile, we position our actual forces here, and here, hidden but ready. And the graviton devices asked Grand Marshal Vitor, disguised as standard communication relays throughout the system. She replied, when the Vex arrive expecting easy prey, we activate. The devices sever their quantum links and spring the trap. Admiral Pix's facial tentacles writhed with agitation. This plan relies on too many assumptions. How can you be certain the Rex will take the bait? Because predators can't resist wounded prey, Voss answered simply. It's instinctual. They see vulnerability, they attack. We are counting on that response. The chamber erupted into heated debate. Many council members expressed doubt, some outright rejection. I watched Voss carefully during this exchange. She didn't argue or try to force her point. She simply waited, observing each speaker with that same intense focus I'd noticed before. Finally, Grand Marshal Victor raised his massive hand for silence. The plan is unorthodox, but our conventional strategies have failed. I move that we implement. Ambassador Voss's proposal, Chancellor Gaz, bristled with, all due respect, Marshal, we would be gambling with millions of lives based on a human's hunting theories, and what are we risking by doing nothing? It countered Trade Minister Locke's. Surprising me with her support, 6 colony worlds lost already. The Vrex advance hasn't slowed. I stood making my decision. We will put it to a vote, all in favor of implementing the Voss strategy. One by one hands appendages, and battle against the V-Rex begins. Tentacles rose across the chamber. Not unanimous, but a clear majority. Very well, I announced Grand Marshal Victor will coordinate with Ambassador Voss to implement the plan immediately. This council stands adjourned. As the chamber emptied, Ambassador Krell approached me, his cranial ridges flushed with concern. This is a mistake. Zorv trusting our defense to a species that still fights with projectile weapons. They don't even have unified planetary governance. I watched Voss conferring with the military officers, her hands moving animatedly as she explained some detail of her plan. Perhaps, I replied, those very limitations give them perspective. Wellock, Krell snorted. Next, you will suggest we adopt their primitive exentas, official Concordat protocol. I smiled, despite myself. If it helps us defeat the Rex, I might consider it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Kuldor Prime's fake evacuation was staged with convincing chaos. Civilian ships departed in apparent disarray, leaving behind scattered personal belongings and deactivated defense systems. Meanwhile, the combined fleet concealed itself in the system's dense asteroid belt, along with hundreds of the modified graviton pulse generators. Ambassador Voss worked tirelessly alongside our military commanders, refining the plan, adjusting for contingencies. I observed her during this period with growing fascination. She slept barely 3 hours a night, sustained by what she called coffee, a bitter earth stimulant that smelled absolutely revolting. "How can you drink that?" I asked her once, finding her alone in the command center at what should have been rest period. Acquired taste, she replied with a tired smile. "He gets the job done like you." I noted the Marshal speaks highly of your tactical insights. She shrugged. "I'm just applying what we learned through millennia of killing each other, not something to be proud of, really. Yet here we are, depending on that very knowledge." Boss looked up from her data pad, her expression suddenly serious. "That's the irony, isn't it? We humans spent most of our history trying to overcome our violent tendencies. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times now. Our expertise in warfare might save your civilization." A curious paradox. I agreed. "Life's full of them," she said, taking another sip of her vile beverage. "By the way, the Rex scouts have been spotted at the edge of the Kaldor system. They took the bait." "How can you be so calm?" I asked, genuinely curious. "If your plan fails, billions could die." Her accent thickened as she replied, "Being nervous never won a battle. Zorv, besides, plans always go sideways. That's why we have got backups for our backups. And if those fail too," she smiled, that unsettling smile again, "then we improvise. Humans are good at that." I left. They're there working through the night cycle, and wondered, not for the first time, what kind of species could turn unexpected reinforcements, their own violent history into a strength. Rex fleet has entered the Kaldor system, announced. The tactical officer, 17 vessels approaching the main settlement pattern. We stood in the fleet command center watching as the enemy ships moved precisely through space, unaware of the trap awaiting them. Grand Marshal Victor loomed beside Ambassador Voss, both studying the tactical display with intense concentration. "They are moving faster than anticipated," noted Admiral Pix. "Shall we activate the graviton network now?" "Not yet," Voss said, her eyes tracking the enemy movements. "They are still too spread out. We need them bunched together when we spring the trap. The longer we wait, the closer they get to the civilian structures we left behind," warned Chancellor Gaz. "Those structures are empty," Voss reminded him, "and the Virex are still operating as shunters, not destroyers. They will want to investigate before they consume." I found myself holding my breath as the Virex fleet approached Kuldor Prime's orbit. Their ships were eerily beautiful organic curves of some unknown metal that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "They are deploying scout vessels," reported the tactical officer's standard formation, sweeping toward the main colony. "Perfect," Voss murmured. "They are following the exact pattern from previous attacks." They get ready to activate on my mark. Minutes stretched like hours as we watched the Rex methodically encircle the seemingly abandoned colony. Their main vessels held position in high orbit while smaller craft descended to investigate. "Now," Voss said, "suddenly activate all generators kits throughout the Kaldor system." Hundreds of disguised devices simultaneously released precisely calibrated gravitational pulses. On our displays, we could see the wave of distortion rippling through space for a terrible moment. Nothing happened. Then chaos. The Vex ships suddenly lost their perfect formation. Several smaller craft collided while others began firing, weapons seemingly at random. The beautiful precision of their movements dissolved into disarray. "Their quantum communication is disrupted," Voss announced, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Phase 1, complete, Marshal," from their hiding places in the asteroid belt. Concord. Warships emerged, weapons already firing. The Rex, caught by surprise and unable to coordinate, responded sluggishly. "It's working," breathed Chancellor Gaz beside me. "By the ancient stars, it's actually working." But warfare is never simple, as we were about to learn. New contacts shouted. The tactical officer Rex reinforcements entering the system at least 30 vessels grand. Marshal Vitor turned to Voss alarm, evident even on his stoic features. This wasn't in your prediction model, I have. Voss replied calmly with all due victory and its aftermath respect, Marshal. I anticipated the possibility of reinforcements, that's why I requested those modifications to your long-range sensor grid last week. Understanding dawned on the Marshal's face, but the maintenance work on the outer beacons. You weren't repairing them, I was repurposing them. She confirmed each one now contains a graviton generator calibrated to a much wider radius Admiral Pix, if you will authorize the activation code. How did you know? I asked Voss, astonished by her foresight. I didn't know, she admitted. But in human military history, ambushes often trigger larger counter-responses, so I planned for it. The battle raged for hours without their quantum communication. The Vrex fought as individual ships, rather. Then a coordinated fleet idle still, but no longer the perfect hunting machine that had devastated our outer colonies. By the time the last Rex vessel was neutralized, the combined fleet had suffered significant losses. But the victory was undeniable. For the first time since the incursion began, we had won a decisive engagement in the aftermath as damage reports flooded in and recovery operations commenced. I found Ambassador Voss standing alone by a viewport and staring out at the distant flashes of light that marked destroyed ships and debris. You should be celebrating. I told her your strategy saved billions of lives today. You sound certain. Finally, she turned to face me, her expression solemn because I'm thinking like they think now, and if I were them, I'd be furious. Predators don't like being outsmarted by prey. They will come back harder, smarter, and we will be ready, I assured her. Will we? She sighed suddenly, looking exhausted. This victory bought us time, nothing more we need to understand. What drives them? What they want? Not just how they hunt, but why. Before I could respond, Grand Marshal Victor approached his war plates gleaming despite the battle damage. Ambassador Voss, he said, formally, the Security Council has convened an emergency. Session, your presence is requested. She nodded, straightening her simple blue uniform. Of course, Marshal. As we made our way to the council chamber, I noticed the difference in how everyone regarded her now. No sidelong glances of amusement, Earth's unique proposal, no muffled laughter. At her accent, instead, there was something new in their eyes. Respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. The chamber was packed when we arrived. All 47 member species were present, along with military commanders and strategic advisors. A hush fell as ambassador. Voss entered. Chancellor Gaz spoke first. Ambassador Voss, on behalf of the Galactic Concordat, I extend our profound gratitude for your assistance in repelling the Vrex threat. Rumors of agreement rippled through the assembly. Furthermore, continued the Chancellor, in light of today's events, the Council has unanimously voted to offer Earth immediate full membership in the Concordat, with all rights and privileges thereof. Applause erupted around the chamber. I watched Voss carefully, expecting to see triumph, or at least satisfaction. Instead, she looked thoughtful, almost concerned when the applause died down. She stepped forward. Chancellor, members of the Council, I am honored by your offer. Earth has sought Concordat membership since our first contact with galactic civilization. However, she paused and I sensed the entire chamber holding its breath. However, I must respectfully request that you reconsider the terms of this membership. Used murmurs spread through the assembly. Explain, Ambassador. Requested Trade Minister Locks, and she gestured too. The tactical displays still showing the aftermath of battle if Earth joins the Concordat. Now we do so as equals, but I believe what the Concordat truly needs from humanity is not our equality, but our expertise. Chancellor Gaz frowned. I don't understand. You need us to teach you how to fight, Voss said bluntly, her accent somehow making the words more powerful. Not just this battle, but the war that's coming. You need what humans have spent millennia perfecting. God help us. The art of warfare. The chamber fell silent. I propose a different arrangement, she continued. Earth will join the Concordat, but with special status as military strategic advisors. We will share our knowledge of combat tactics. Guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, all the ugly, brutal expertise we have gained from our blood-soaked history. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species who had mocked her just months before. In return, we ask for technology, sharing cultural exchange, and the opportunity to help build a galaxy where eventually such knowledge won't be necessary. Her new role in the galaxy voice softens slightly, where no species will need to remember how to eat rats to survive Grand Marshal. Victor was the first to respond. You offer to be our warriors, so we need not become them ourselves. I offer a division of labor. Voss corrected, you have arts, sciences, and philosophies far beyond Earth's. We have other skills. I watched the faces around the chamber as they absorbed her proposal. Many looked uncomfortable, some disturbed, but none, I noticed, looked dismissive. This will require extensive discussion, Chancellor Gase finally said. Such an arrangement is unprecedented, so is the Vex threat. Voss pointed out, unprecedented problems require unprecedented solutions. As debate erupted around the chamber, I moved to stand beside her, a bold proposal. I murmured, not everyone will appreciate being reminded of humanity's violent expertise. She smiled faintly. Better. They are uncomfortable now than extinct. Later, and what happens when the Rex are defeated? I asked, what role will humans play in a peaceful galaxy? We will go back to writing poetry, composing music, and arguing about sports, Cher replied. With a small shrug, or isn't what defines us? Sorve. It's just something we learn to do very, very well. The council debated long into the night. In the end, they accepted Ambassador Voss's proposal. Earth joined the Concordat as military strategic advisors. And a new era of galactic cooperation began the war. With the Vex lasted another 2 standard years. It was brutal, complex, and required everything humanity had learned from our bloody history. We lost worlds, we lost chips, we lost people from dozens of species, but in the end we won. As for Ambassador Kira Voss, she still serves as Earth's representative to the Concordat. Her accent no longer draws any reaction beyond attentive listening. When she speaks, everyone pays attention, whether she's discussing trade agreements or military strategy. Sometimes I hear new ambassadors ask why humans were given such unusual status. In conclusion, the Concordat, when they do, I tell them this story about how a galaxy full of advanced civilizations faced extinction. Until we listened to a woman with a funny accent who understood the language of war, and how that understanding saved us all. Zorv Tanak's lead, Diplomatic Liaison, 7th Quadrant, Security Council Official, Historical Archive, Galactic Date, 7429. 3.